Alors, cette conférence a lieu en anglais parce que nous avons pas mal de participants, enfin d'auditeurs, qui sont en visioconférence à distance. Donc, est-ce que sur l'anglais? So, this lecture will be in English. I know that most of you in the room understand French very well. You don't need to have the lecture in English, but many of the participants remotely connected, and 90 of them have registered. So how many will actually be there? I don't know. Sure. So we will start, and I would like to introduce General Jean-Daniel Testé. Jean-Daniel Testé is a former joint commander, space commander of the French Ministry of Defense. And after he left, you left in 2017, yeah, 2017, I retired from the army. He has set up a startup company, which is called Agena Space, and he's heading the Agena Space company, located in Bordeaux.
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
perfect.
And is now part of the new space, I would say the new space complex. So he's an expert in the use of space system for defense and security. And you all know that this is a topic which is very timely because a lot of discussions are taking place at the European level to reinforce our systems, both at national level and at European level, dedicated to improving the security of the European states. So I will now give the floor to General Testé. Jean-Daniel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Gerard, and thank you very much to the Academy to give me the opportunity to have this conference today. I'm very, very happy to come to Brussels, especially during these days. Wonderful. Well, it's always difficult to start this conference because usually it's too late to say you good morning. It's too early to say good afternoon. So usually at that time, I can say enjoy your meal, but in fact, it's not the case. So I will just say enjoy your conference. So, well, we will be at war in space today. It will not be my conference at all, but I will try during my conference to explain why it could be an opportunity, and if it is an opportunity, how we Europeans should be ready to what will happen in space soon, and that already started yet. But frankly speaking, and we could discuss about it later, I do not believe in a war in space. Just to come back to the news, because everybody this weekend at the end of last week, we discussed about that. We have had a lot of information about what happened in Russia. I just want to say two things that happened in Russia. That was a great event for the Ukraine army. I'm really a lot of respect to these guys that have done a very, very great job, especially when you know how strong are the defense of Russia. I just want to say that just one day after the operation, we got the first images. And it would have been impossible, let's say, 5 or 10 years ago, just because we have a strong space support now and a strong space support regarding intelligence and observation, more particularly observation. I would also say that this operation would not have been possible without a very strong support from communication from space. I don't know exactly. I did not study very well because it is quite new, this kind of activity. I did not have the time to know the opportunity to study a little bit more in detail how it has been conducted, but I'm convinced, and that's my conviction, that it has been conducted with a strong support from the constellation, whatever the constellation it is. I will not name only one constellation, but you can understand what I mean when I'm talking about communication constellation. That means that they demonstrate once again a new behavior in space warfare. in warfare, not only space, but usage of space for the benefits of ground operation. And for us as European, once again, it is we need to take the lessons learned to determine what should be our priority in the future, because well, once again, I'm from the Air Force, so I don't want to fight against the Army or nor the Navy, but this kind of operation demonstrates that the use of guns, of tanks or whatever is it's obsolete now. So we are changing the way of warfighting on the ground. So I will not stay too long on that point because I have a lot of things to say today. And as Gérard said at the beginning, I used to be a little bit long in my speech, but as it is in English, I will do it shorter because, well, I'm more fluent in French, of course. The next one in the news is this US initiative of Golden Dome initiative. That for me is very interesting because it's very close in some way to what the President Reagan calls a Star War a long time ago. It's very close because it is dedicated to protect the U.S. territory against any ballistic threat. So that's very strong. But without space, this kind of system will never works. That's just my message today, that without space, it will be impossible to develop this kind of system to protect the whole continent. I will be happy to answer questions later, but my speech today will be dedicated to the application of space because our space is important for our society and for our military operation. How the risk and the threat are increasing in space also. What are the space strategy in our world? We have a lot of space strategy, and I will give some details about very short details, and what will be next. And after that, my personal conclusion, and we will have, I hope, and I will do my best to give some floor to discussion at the end. Just a few, I will not spend my time about space mechanics because it's too complicated. And I just want to focus on the three main categories of orbit because I'm going to speak about things in orbit. And usually, this object in orbit are located in three main categories of orbit. What we call the low Earth orbit, the LEO, which is around 300 kilometers to 1,000 kilometers height. The medium Earth orbit from 5,000 to 25,000. And finally, the geo, there is only one, geostationary orbit, which is around 36,000 kilometer height. Just to fix the idea for everybody, understand what I mean when I'm talking about LEO, MEO, or GEO. Essential application. Of course, as I say at the beginning, space is essential for society and for the defense and security. Regarding society, this number has been published first time by the US in 2014, so it's quite a long time ago. It didn't change very much because most of this number represents the number of satellites a Western citizen is using every day. Well, 47. You have not the idea that every day you are using 47 satellites. No, neither do I. But today, this number, even it has been published first time by the US a long time ago, is quite admitted even in Europe. Because in the 47 satellites, you have all the constellation, Galileo constellation, GPS constellation, that you are using at least every day when you start your car and you are looking at the map on your car. All of you know that the map of your car is synchronized and determined by either GPS, either Galileo in Western countries. And you have also, when you go close to Russia, you can use also the GLONASS satellite. And when you are going to Asia or Middle East, you can use all the system, Galileo, GPS, GLONASS, and even the Chinese one, and sometimes the Indian one also. So among the 47, you have already most of half, more than 30, that are these constellation satellite. But you are also the observation satellite that you are using on Google Earth, for instance, to look at the map you are using on your car. And when you are, for instance, listening the news and more particularly the meteorological prediction. So you have also the use of many meteorological satellites. At the end, it's the number 47. And the application for the society are very numerous. I'm not going to spend a lot of time because today I will focus on space in defense, and security. So you have a lot of application for the society. You have agriculture, of course. You have the pole and ice monitoring, broadcasting. I put the Paris Saint-Germain because it has been worldwide published, and because it has been worldwide published mainly by the use of communication satellites. So broadcasting is a very important usage of space, also of satellite. Monitoring of the weather and monitoring of the climate change is also, the satellites are also helping us a lot to understand how the weather is changing every day and how the climate is changing among the years. The banking and finance. Well, I don't know if you noticed today, it happened to us yesterday when we arrived in Belgium. I'm not sure, I hope it is not this kind of trouble. Yesterday we went to a restaurant, and when we entered the room, told us that it was unable to use a credit card or whatever devices using not different than cash. So we need to pay by cash because all the systems were unable yesterday night, and it was in the center of town. And this morning we just took a coffee 100 meters from here, and it was the same. So I hope it is not this kind of trouble, because banking and finance are relying on the GNSS. GNSS is the word for all the GPS, Galileo systems, global navigation satellite system. In fact, all the GNSS system, whatever the Russian, Chinese, European, or US, they deliver, of course, localization, positioning, but the most important information they deliver is the synchronization, this time. They give you a reference, a time reference, and this time reference is used for the banking system. If all the cash machine you have downtown are not synchronized to the banking system, you will not be able to take cash as these systems. So this is a very important activity that is provided by the space system to the society. Of course, you have also transport and mobility of any kind, of ground transport, maritime transport, that are using space system also. And finally, you have all the support to the business intelligence. Business intelligence is quite interesting because it's a new usage of the space imagery. It has been developed initially during the COVID time, because you're a big bank company and wanted to have a report, a very accurate report of how the economy was starting again in the world. So they monitor, just it is on this slide. It's small, but it is. They monitor the activity of the factories, the activity of the mines, the activity of the main commercial center, to have an idea of how the economy is starting again. They start to work in Asia and to come to Europe and to America. So it was a very new usage of space, but very interesting. And finally, but it is in the middle between defense and security, the monitoring of natural disaster and the support. We can optimize the support to rescue all the people that suffer from the natural disasters. So you can see that space is very well used and developed within our society. Let's now come back to the usage in terms of security and defense. Just an overview. I will go a little bit in more details. I've been speaking a lot about the Russian at the beginning of my presentation. Here you have an example of the monitoring, what we call strategic intelligence, because images are used to monitor all the strategic systems of most of the countries of the world, especially Russia, China, France, US, and whatever. And monitoring, in that case, you have an example of a very accurate image. It is an Maxar image, so US image, that has been taken of a very new ballistic missile installation in Russia, with the missile, with all all the support activity around. So it's very interesting, especially this one, because you have the different brigade organization. That means all the brigades. That means that this unit, Russian unit, is full. That means you have the three brigades, the three main components, battalion, let's say it's not brigade, it's battalion, and the support vehicle. That means that looking at that, instantaneously, you can say that this system is fully operational and can be used any time by the Russians. Some more example. Let's keep on the ballistic missile, because there are ballistic missiles all over the world. This one is an example of the installation, the underground installation in Iran. You have the ballistic missile base of Kormoj in Iran that have been increased in capacity a few months ago, and you can see all the different. It's not, let's say, classic silos. It's just a ballistic missile on their trucks that are covered under the mountain, and we have a big entrance. And when they want to use it, they go through the entrance and send the missile and launch the missile. Keeping on strategic intelligence, this is an example of what the Chinese are doing in the South China Sea. You have here in 2013, it was nothing more than, let's say, some rocks on the ocean. In 2015, it has been, the change started with some, they bring some earth, some sand to increase the area. And finally, in 2017, you have a full island, a new island with a big airport and big installations. And looking a little bit more accurately, I'm sorry that I can't do the example myself. You can see that in 2016, they start to deploy this kind of aircraft, that means fighter aircraft in this island. Knowing that these islands are the Spratly Island, they are located and there is international discussion between China, between Japan, between India. You have also Indonesia, if I remember well, and some islands also are under discussion with Vietnam and Cambodia. So you have a big international dispute on that point. But the strength of the Chinese is that the Chinese are on one side and all the other countries are not allied. They are all divided, so they are going to fight against China, diplomatically speaking, of course, but alone. That they are too weak alone, so they should better discuss together and go against China together. But, well, diplomacy, I'm not going to make some lesson of diplomacy because it's not my job at all, and I will be wrong to teach diplomacy to this kind of guys also. This one is famous and a little bit funny because, as you can imagine, the US is monitoring very accurately the launch pad, Iranian launch pad, space launch pad. It is used. This launch pad, located in the center of Iran, is mainly used to send their space launcher with satellite, with different activity, but also that what it is interesting, and that's why the US are monitoring very well. It's also a test pad for the future long-range ballistic missile of Iran. And what was funny is what President Trump, but it is not just this year or just a few time ago, it was during his first mandate. He sent this kind of, at that time it was a Twitter, it was not X. And what is amazing is that the image he provided in this tweet is a top secret image. That means it is a top secret image taken by either a satellite, either a UAV, and he published, with this text. That's the fun about this guy. So this image, you can be sure, has been studied very well by all the intelligence services of the world, just to be sure that the most accurate, what was the most accurate parameters of the US images. And we have a very good example here, just for the fun. This one, I will let it do it. Well, frankly speaking, I do not have the time to do the same with the Russian withdrawing of this airport. This airport is a Syrian airport. Excuse me, I need to keep on. This airport is a Syrian airport where we can monitor when the Russian in 2015, if I remember well, deployed their forces and their aircraft. In fact, you have a cycle, and that's what we call surveillance because we have a multi-temporal surveillance. It's the same area at different period of time. So this is very powerful in terms of intelligence because the change are quite obvious without a lot of analysis. And you can see here a large aircraft, transport aircraft, Russian transport aircraft, and later on we will see the fighters. Excuse me. Just an example, I would have, well, if I had at the time, I would like to do the same with the withdrawal of the Russian forces of the same airport after the Bashar regime failed. But for the time being, I do not have the time to do so. Just example, you imagine it's very good. The first image I show you was a radar image that has been taken during the to watch the results of the Ukrainian UAVs attack on the Russian bombers. The trouble with Ukraine and Russia is that let's say 8 months of the year they are cloud cover. That means that you can't use optical system to get information. You are obliged to have another kind of system, and the other kind of system is a radar. And here you have an example. There are very few that enable us to have the direct comparison. You have on the left side of the image the radar image, and on the middle you have the optical image. So you can see that the level of information you get is not the same. Frankly speaking, the optical image is much more, sorry for the lady, sexy. It's because it's nicer and it is good looking. And in fact, you can take directly the information. For a politician person, it's much more easy to take a decision on the right image than on the left one. On the left one, if you are not well educated of analysis these kind of devices, you will say with very hardly that you have an aircraft carrier or helicopter carrier and 2 frigates. On the optical image, it's obvious. But as I said, on areas of operation just like Russia or Eastern Ukraine, where it is cloud cover from November to March, this radar images is the only one you can get. So it's very useful too. Another example of, and when I say that radar images is not good looking, you have another one on the right side. It's not really good looking, and a lot of image analysts do not like working on this type of image. But well, as I said, sometimes you have only these kind of images. Infrared is also another kind of images you can get from space. Just to monitor the heat and monitor the heat is most of the time giving, in military speaking, giving to you the idea of an activity because the engine of the trucks, of the tanks, the engines that provide electricity, that provide power, that provide heat to installation, of course they are very hot and you can spot them very well. So if you have an installation without any hot spot, that means the installation is empty or is not active. But if you have a lot of hot spots, in that case, you have generators and fluid pipeline to give the heat in the installation. So it is an active installation. And finally, I will just play the game with you, the one that were here last year, because I'm always taking this example, even it's quite old, now it is from 2013, because it was very, there are some particularities that are quite interesting, and I know that some of you were already there last year during my conference, and I already that, but well, please do not ask, give the answer. But for the other, just take 5 minutes, or not 5 minutes, 5 seconds, to try to understand why this activity is suspicious. In fact, I give you the information. This image has been taken in the north of Mali, among the sand and the dune and so on. And it is a gathering of vehicle in the north of Mali. So it could be vehicle for family vehicles that go for a picnic or for whatever installation. It could be let's say, people that trade cigarettes, and also at that time it could have been terrorist. Why the analyst concludes that it is suspicious? Because there is a detail, just to explain to you how the image analyst works. It's a very small detail. I'm sorry, I will go to the image. Otherwise, I could maybe show you with, yeah, no, you don't see mine. So I will be obliged to leave the mic for a moment. If you look at here you have a point that is very relevant when you are an image analyst. This point is nothing more than a watch. That is a guy that is on the top of the hill, of the dune, that is watching around. And the image analyst said that if this activity that is located on behind requires a watch to be secure, that means it is not a sympathetic activity. And the end of the story, I'm sorry, I can't show you because the images are classified, is this column of vehicle has been totally destroyed. First of all, we had the image of UAVs that assess that some of the truck were equipped with twin guns. So they are really vehicle from the terrorist groups. And the third image we got is a full destruction by bombers. If I remember well, it was Mirage 2000 that bombed this activity in a few minutes after we decided it was terrorist group. Communication now, because well, as you may understand, I spend a lot of time on imagery because it's my background and I love speaking about imagery. But also, I must admit that communication are very useful. In that case, you have an example of the use of the GeoSatcom during the operation in Sahel and in Africa. The spot that is permanent is the blue one that covers the French territory. And the red one is a steerable spot. We can move from one place to any kind of place. In that case, you have 4 positions that has been from the beginning. The one that it is covering the Mediterranean Sea is the one that when we started. But once the war started in North Sahel, we moved the spot southbound to cover all the Sahel area. And finally, we move a little bit more south and east to cover the Central Africa because about that, I will start again. So I was speaking about space communication. And just like I said at the beginning, that now the space communication, satellite communication is changing a lot. And we have new devices that are entering in operation. The most famous, of course, is Starlink. And frankly speaking, I think it is the one that has been used by the Ukrainian for their operation during this weekend. But the future in the hope of Europe is ERE Square, for instance, for example. And for sure, even it is our future system, and we all believe in it. I've been also talking about the GNSS, just to give you some more detail about the current GNSS systems that are working quite very well. The GPS is the oldest one. GLONASS is a Russian. Beidou is a Chinese. Galileo is ours. And QZSS is a Japanese. And ERNSS is a Indian. And I know also that the Korean are preparing another one. So a lot of, and sometimes I'm asking myself, why do this country need to have a full sovereign system by themselves? And the idea is just because, the answer is just because I said previously, for me, the most important information that is provided by space is the timing signal, because it is the most used. It is used for our day-to-day life, and it is also used to synchronize all the weapon system in the world. That means that this information, if we are lacking of this information, we are all in trouble. We are in trouble as citizens because we can't operate the way we used to operate, especially with the banking system, but with a lot of other systems too. And we are in trouble also as military because we will have great difficulties to navigate with a high level of security with our aircraft, with our ships. And we will also be in trouble to synchronize all our weapon systems. So that for me is the most dangerous thing that could happen. That's why when I told you that Yesterday, the banking system was not working very well in Brussels. I was a little bit, let's say, worried about that, because it's never good that we are in trouble this way. And just the use of a GNSS system for, I just said, for military operation, accurate targeting, positioning, navigation with high level of security. Finally, my conclusion of this first part is that we are really dependent on space system. Even we do not feel it every day, but as I said at the beginning, 47 satellites we use every day is quite a dependency. And dependency, we are highly dependent on space system, and dependency gives us a very high level of vulnerability. It is society speaking, not only military speaking, it's a global speaking. And the high level of vulnerability has to be made in comparison of the increasing risk and threat in space. And the increasing of threat and risk in space is very well illustrated on this single slide that has been provided by the EU, where you have all the threat in space, and we're going to go a little bit in more detail. But first, I will start with some numbers. Be aware, this report is a European Agency annual report of the space activity and space threats. And the number of space objects is increasing on a very high, and you can see on the slide, very high proportion every year since last year. So it's increasing a lot. At the same time, the size of the space object is getting smaller and smaller. So you have more objects in orbit, and these objects are smaller. So we are in great trouble. And the number of inert objects also increase a lot, because you have debris, and these debris create by themselves other debris, and you have a lot of objects that are not used for any topic. So it is what we call inert objects that increasing a lot. And while these objects are increasing, you have here an average of all the objects you have in space. At least we have 8% of objects that are functional satellites. The rest, let's say, is useless. That means you have non-functional satellite, you have upper stage, just stayed in space for nothing. You have debris from operations, and you have fragments of debris. So 8%, have in mind, it represents the active system in space. The rest is debris, could be considered as debris. And when we consider, we need to monitor the debris. Here you have an example of monitoring. And in this monitoring, we can record all the events that create a lot of space debris. The first one was a Chinese ASAT in 2007, and the second one was the Iridium Cosmos collision in 2009, if I remember well. All this activity create a large number of debris. And the number of debris is increasing because debris are colliding with themselves. And when they collide with themselves, they create new debris and so on. So the debris issue is a real issue in space also. That's why we have laws now. We have a French space operation law. We will have very soon, or I don't remember if it has been published, a European Space Act that will also regulate the activity for all the systems, the operator of a satellite system, to have good behavior to reduce the number of debris in space. The idea for everybody, and mainly for the operators of satellites, is to keep in the green line. That means that's what we call the area of space operation, where the sustainability of space operation is certain. And never go to the red area where we will be unable to control anything, and where every object in space will be put in danger. This, I've been talking about the debris. That is a risk, because behind the debris there is no intention. So for me, it's a risk, it's not a threat. Let's talk about the threats now. The first one, for me, this one is what we call the very old image that give us, in France at least, the sensitivity about strange behavior in space. You have two objects that have been pictured by a telescope on the ground. These two objects are located in the geostationary orbit. The big one is our military satellite, Syracuse, at that time it was 2B. And the other one, it is smaller, we don't know. And the small object is located, let's say, 1 kilometer around the big one. So it's very close in the geostationary orbit. This picture has been taken by a French telescope in 2012. And frankly speaking, today we do not have any explanation, very clear explanation, to understand what's happened at that time. We have ideas now because more and more countries are communicating about their activity in space, in geostationary. So we started to have good ideas, but regarding the attribution of this event, we have no ideas. Probably it is an inspection satellite, sure, but from which country, we don't know. The US said it was a Russian, and the Russian said it was the US. So we keep on discussing about that. Suspicious activity. Let's say, in itself, this activity should not be suspicious. Why? Because it is the operation, well, it is not real. It's just a kind of simplified view, just to explain what it happened. This Chinese satellite went on a geostationary orbit to grab another satellite which was obsolete. That means it was debris because it was not operating again. So he grabs the satellite and bring him to another orbit out of the geostationary belt. That means that in that case, it applied what we all in the world are asking as a good behavior. That means he bring out from the geostationary belt an object that is useless. So that's good for anybody to bring another satellite that will be useful. So this operation should be, well, everybody in the world should be happy that we can behave this way. But when they are behaving this way, of course, you say I'm a former military, so somehow in my mind, I'm always, let's say, looking for the bad guys, suspicious. In that case, when you can do so with a debris, you are able to do the same with another. Imagine that in the place of the debris, instead of the debris, it was an operating French satellite or European satellite that is taken by this spacecraft and put on another orbit. That means that in a few minutes, your communication satellite in the geostationary orbit is useless also. In a few minutes, you just change the orbit and it is no more operational for the mission it has been dedicated to. So it's really suspicious. And the US mainly are monitoring very accurately, and I will give you some more examples at the end, these kind of activities. Otherwise, you have other examples. This one is very famous because our French Ministry of Armed Forces in 2019 made a communication on that. It is a Russian Lucio lamp, also a satellite in the geostationary orbit that spend this time going close to other communication satellite just for, let's say, intelligence purposes. So it's very famous, and the restitution of its activity is very accurate and real. It's not a fantasy. The same as the Russian Lucio lamp is a Chinyan 17 that is doing almost the same in geostationary orbit. And finally, an example of what's happened in a low Earth orbit. That means closer to the Earth. Remember, from 300 to 1,000 kilometers high. You have the example of what we call the Russian puppet satellite that deliver a satellite that itself deliver another object. That means that the explanation given by the US, but where most of the space community agreed, is that it is a demonstration of a kind of weapon system aiming to throw a bullet to another satellite in the LEO orbit. And finally, I would say just it was the beginning of this part. Threats and risks are increasing, so we are aware, and that's why we are developing space strategies. Just like says the President Macron, space is also today an expression of power, and we have to face up this reality. And we need to be able to face up this reality. You have a lot of countries in the world that develop space strategy. They have all some parameters in common. Here you have the most important. Space is fundamental to a nation, prosperity and security. All these parameters are common even between the Russian strategy, the Chinese strategy, and the US strategy and the European one. We all consider that space is fundamental to a nation, prosperity and security. Space, regarding the military area, space is a force multiplier and is essential to support military operation. Regarding now the law, space belongs to no one. That's a basic principle of the space law of 1967. And now space is crowded, contested, and competitive. I hope that I give you some examples that it is really the case. Space system in orbit can be threatened. We had some example already. And the space strategies that are developed by this country aims to ensure the free and safe use of their space system. And most of the time, they conclude saying that if necessary, they could be in a position to deny the use of space to any adversary. So all these parameters are mainly in any strategy that has been developed yet. Coming to the US, the first one, a strategy that is maybe the most comprehensive, developed well. The issue was the creation of the Space Force in 2018 by President Trump this way. A Space Force that is separated to the other forces, but equal. It's a force by itself. 4 pillars to this strategy: the resilience, the deterrence, the increase of the capacity building, that means the industrial part, and of course, the interagency and international cooperation. And the objectives are to enhance the safety and the stability and the security in space, to maintain and enhance the strategic national security advantage that the space gave to the United States, and to boost the space industry also that supports the US security. Something that has to be noted, it's quite long because it is an abstract of news. But in fact, what we should have in mind is that the US is the country in the world that made the most numerous tests of anti-satellite system. They have tested and operated more than 8 anti-satellite systems. Airbase, it was a missile under F-15 Eagle aircraft, and maritime base with destroyers that launched a missile the last time. But because they are considering that anti-satellite systems are not very good for the sustainability of space activity, they unilaterally decided to stop the testing of this kind of weapons. And they encourage all the other space nations to do the same. But for the moment, they are the only one in the world that decided. Well, with a little bit of point of humor, I would say they decided because already the system are ready and have been well tested. It's not mainly the case for the Chinese, the Russian, that tested only once, but we are not sure that they will be operating soon. But the US, they are full confident of the system. The airborne system is quite old, but and they remain very few. But the last one that has been operating in 2009 has been operated in very short notice and very effective. So we consider that the most efficient anti-satellite system today are the US, even if the US decided not to test them a little bit more. So it's been, but the other one are also developing, and they are not decided yet to stop the testing. Let's come to the strategy of Russia. The Russia space strategy wants to assert the authority, the status and the prestige, and to boost the economy. On that point, nothing very different. The strategy combines 3 approaches: the national security approach, or the militarization of space, the peace approach, and the space security approach. The Russian space security is ensured by the Russian Aerospace Defense Force, and the Defense Force are responsible for monitoring what we call the SSA. That means the monitoring of space objects in space and identifying the threat for the nation and preventing the attack if necessary. Preventing, we are switching from the SSA to the SDA, that is the space defense, from the space situation awareness to the space defense, space domain awareness, which is a kind of space defense. So that's the branch that gives to the Russian all the system to be able to protect the space system and to detect any threats. The counter-space capability of the Russian Aerospace Force are included, of course, electronic warfare systems, and our friends of Europe, Northern and Western Europe are operating every day, experimenting every day what this electronic weapon system could make on the GNSS signal. That means that you have permanent, quasi-permanent jamming of the GNSS in the northern area of Western Europe, Eastern Europe. And Russia, what is important, is less dependent on the space than the United States. That means that if they want to, they are less dependent. So if the US want to destroy some satellite, Russian satellite, the efficiency will be less than the opposite. That could be today maybe the strength of the Russian, that they are less dependent on space systems than the US or than the Western countries. And so that means they are less concerned about the potential negative effect on the orbital debris in the space domain. So for me, it gives a significant advantage to the Russia in the implementation of the offensive space weapon and strategies. And you have two examples of weapon systems that are today operating in Russia. The Noodle PL-19 missile, that is anti-satellite missile, that is the one that has been launched at the beginning, at the very beginning, if you remember, of the Ukraine invasion. It was in 2022, I think, 22 or 3, I know. Yeah. And the other one is less known, but it is, for me, a great concern. It is a laser system that was initially dedicated to against UAVs, and they increase the power, they increase its mobility for it to be able to operate against the satellites. China has more than a strategy, it has a law, and the law that maintains the peaceful exploration and use of outer space, to strengthen the international cooperation, to develop research, scientific research and exploitation capabilities. That's very interesting because they are the ones that put with Luxembourg, that's famous, and they are the ones that put the exploitation of space capability in a law. So that's not strange, but interesting. And they want to protect, of course, the security of the space activity and space assets. In the framework of the law, China promotes civil military integration in space and the space stability and the conflict prevention. And it improves the space governance among all the actors in China that were totally separated. And that now see space as a dominant position in the international strategic competition. And they want to ensure the security of the space system, just like the Russians, just like the US, of course. The goal of the Chinese operation is to achieve space superiority that is defined as the assurance of ability to make full use of space while limiting, weakening, and destroying adversary space force. When you read this sentence in the Chinese law, it's quite worrying, because with this kind of behavior, they can do what they want as soon as they feel that they are under threat in space. Discussion. And the news, because China is the last one that makes some change in its strategy, they now elevate the space as a new warfighting domain that has been decided by the Central Military Committee in April 24. They announced the major organization that elevated the importance of space, cyber, information capability, and they place all these three under only one leadership. And the reorganization includes the disbanding of the PLA Strategic Support Force that was in charge of the space activity so far, and restructuring this Strategic Support Force in three separate forces: the Military Aerospace Force in charge of space, the Cyberspace Force in charge of cyber, and the Information Support Force in charge of information war. Let's come to France. France has published its French defense plan strategy in 2019. And well, I will speed up a little bit, but not because it is not interesting, but regarding Europe, maybe the most interesting what is the US, the Russia, and the Chinese doing. Then France, we can discuss, but it's quite classical. And we created a space force, a space command in 2019 that now is gathering all the activities that were scattered among the forces and the services. And we bring all the units together to have a full command now that is about 500 people that and the new installation will be delivered in October this fall with all the people at that place. Finally, EU published a space strategy for security and defense in March 23 that is articulated around 5 major axes. The first one is knowledge. That's a good point. Then everything starts by knowledge. The second one is security, to protect our space infrastructure and make it very resilient. The third one is action. There's the capacity to develop and to respond to any threat in space. And the fourth is the support to strengthen our space capability for security and defense. And the fifth is cooperation among the nations with allied countries. And EU and ESA develop a lot of strategic capability. We all have in mind the Copernicus system. Galileo, I already spoke about it previously. The EGNOS, that is an augmentation of Galileo, local for Europe, that are 3 very strong and successful systems that have been developed within European Union. And finally, the next one will be IRIS², that is a global gateway for space communication. It's a kind of constellation, secure constellation. Compared to Starlink, it will deliver secure signals. Starlink is delivering signals to everybody, to any citizen, to everybody. But the signal is not very high secure. It's open to any kind of people. For my company, I bought a Starlink antenna, put it on the top of my office, and let's say 2 minutes after the link, I had internet, high-speed internet on my computer. It's quite easy to use, but it's not secure at all. In comparison, IRIS² will be much more secure. Just like Galileo, it is much more secure than, let's say, other systems. So we have the security in mind in Europe for this capacity. Could be the security, that's my personal view, could be improved for Copernicus by instance. For my opinion, Copernicus so far is not enough secure. We could do better on that way. For the next generation, we should take into account this fact that Copernicus should be more secure. I'll just give you an example because to explain what I mean when I say Copernicus is not secure. When I was in the military side, I was in the French intelligence agency. And we had a fight in North Mali with the French forces. And every time we fight against the terrorists, we get back some GPS devices and computers, because they have computers there. And on one computer, we found the Copernicus images. It was Sentinel-2 images of most of the installation in France where the special forces were located. So that means that it's really sensitive. And for me, from a military perspective, today is too open. We need to have the idea to secure a little bit more the distribution of this kind of data, but it's another debate. NATO is also a body that has a great interest in space, of course, it's obvious, and has developed an overarching space policy in 2022 with a lot of principle, and also has declared space as an operational environment, and created a NATO Space Center in Ramstein and a NATO Space Center of Excellence in Toulouse. So NATO came back quite a little bit late on space activity, but now is speed up a lot of very much in this area too. Finally, just it's a pity to summarize space strategy in only one sentence, but well, in one way, you have all the other space strategy in the world that are either ongoing, either existing. So you have most of the country here. And finally, if you want to compare, because maybe it's the most important, is that The US, they want a precise knowledge for dominance, the promotion of responsible behavior, and counter space for protection and deterrence. The Russia is ready to resist and fight in space to prevent any supremacy. That means to prevent US supremacy. They set a strong diplomatic position against the weaponization of space, even as they tested space weapons. The Russian behavior today is totally catalyzed by the US action in space. China is technology-driven. You want to be ahead everywhere, technology speaking, and develop and experiment a lot of systems. Maybe today everybody knows that the US is a country that launched the most of the space system. I would say that China is today the country that experiments the most space system in orbit. So it's good. They are getting a lot of experience for the future. France, it's driven by security and protection first, and we have a reorganization and modernization of all our system until this year, at the end of this year. The EU, it's a new momentum towards strategic capabilities and greater security in space. And finally, NATO, they went a little late, as I said, on the subject, but they are now a real doctrinal and operational effort. What's next? Next, well, maybe I will stay on this one because we are running a little bit late and I would like to discuss a little bit with you. The new space, we have good and not so good. The next space is space as a field of excellence. The power space that is later will be the age of danger, and the space traffic management could be the right solution. What is good and not good in a new space? What is good is the support that new system, as we discussed previously, just like Starlink, could support Russian defense, Ukrainian defense. That's very good because they give strength to the Ukrainian, and the example of the weekend is very, very strong also. But what is not so good is that on some cases, the Starlink satellite are responsible for half of all collisions alert in space. Not a collision because it's only alert, but it's quite a lot because they are very numerous too. Next space that is coming. Next space is the edge, the space of digital data and all the interconnected system. We are going to that with all the communication constellation, for instance. So that's good. That's a good development that we will have a lot of things in space. But once again, we'll be very vulnerable because once we will have our data in a space data center, they will be highly vulnerable against anti-satellite or against any kind of weapon. Power space, for me, it will be the age of danger because the power space is the extension of the spacecraft autonomy from any kind, from robotic systems that gave them the capacity to behave by themselves, or with nuclear power that will give them a lot of autonomy also to behave, to maneuver, to deploy. In that case, what is good for exploration, that's very good because they will go faster and further. But what is wrong is that we will have very strong capacity to be more offensive in space, and that we need to have that in mind. Is the space traffic management a right solution? What is real today? It is a very huge challenge. We do not have any precise definition validated on an international basis. There are numerous projects that need to be brought together, the one of the national agencies, the one of the UN, the one of the ISO, and so on. The solution to so far are essentially of regulatory nature. We have nothing yet coercitive except goodwill and coordination. And we also maybe have a military exception. For this last 3 points, I'm a little less, let's say, positive about the future of STM. As a conclusion, I would say that in Europe, we need a real European SSA and SDA system. Once again, SSA, space situation awareness, the knowledge of what is happening in space, space domain awareness, the ability to act in space, to protect our assets, and to deter the other to threaten our space systems. So that's why I'm convinced that we need a real capacity of action in space with a higher mobility and maneuverability. That means that we need sensors, we need analysis capacity, and we need command and control for being able to propose decision making to our politician. I said autonomous decision making, that means with sovereign sensor capacity, analysis, and command and control capacity. And finally, we will have the action. So for me, we need to improve our knowledge and our self-defense capacity. Just because you have it on the table here, we produce with the Académie a study. Well, it's quite old now because it was in December 21, but well, it's quite relevant because we have 6 recommendations, and the 6 recommendations are updated today. No, not at all, but we need to implement this recommendation. And I'm convinced, once again, that at the EU level, we have the capacity. It's not because the US, and I will show you something here, well, so just to say goodbye to you, and because I really love this picture. For me, I was much younger, and this guy is one I respect a lot in the world. So he's still alive, that's fine.